Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Chia. I'm from CNA. I'd like to start by thanking Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union for inviting CNA to share about our documentary series. It's truly an honor and a privilege to be here. Walk the Line takes a close and timely look at the sudden increase of Chinese migrants coming to the United States. This has big impacts on US immigration rules, border security, and the relationship between US and China. While many documentaries have covered this illegal migration journey to the US, we wanted Walk the Line to be different for its unique scale, its deep access, and its personal and human portrayal of the Chinese migrants. If you haven't watched the series, this is the trailer to give you a sense of what it's about.
I can see their leader, I can see their well-being, but I don't understand why they come over here.
事实是在中国现在混不下去。
我就想到我的孩子，他的以后的出路是好的，是轻省的，不要像我这么累。
跟着我这边啊，跟着我灯光。
不管为了什么目标，达成生命是
跟想象的不一样，有点脏，像没有走出中国一样。
So why make this show? The idea for Walk the Line came from social media. Around mid-2022, our CNA correspondent Wei Du started noticing videos on social media showing Chinese citizens crossing the dense jungle of the Darien Gap. These videos were tagged with the hashtag 走线, which directly translates into Walk the Line. So Wei was fascinated by these journeys. She, along with the other producer Anderson Chia, spent countless hours going through social media feeds. So using their language skills and their knowledge of China, they discovered support groups and guides on platforms like YouTube, Douyin, and Telegram that helped aspiring Chinese migrants. And these sources helped Wei Du and Anderson as well, because they were able to map out the route and come up with a plan for our documentary. So our production plan was always to start in Ecuador. Why Ecuador? It's because it's the closest Latin American country to the US at that time, which allowed Chinese nationals to enter visa-free. So from there, we plan to follow their path using a series of buses, domestic flights, and a trek through the Darien Gap jungle into Panama. For background info, the Darien Gap is a dense jungle between Colombia and Panama. There are no roads, and the migrants have to trek for 5 to 7 days through river crossings, muddy cliffs, cartel territories, and indigenous criminal gangs. So no surprise that it's known as the world's most dangerous jungle. After that, we would fly to the southern Mexican border, catch them enter from Guatemala, and follow them all the way to the US border. Now, because the migrants were cautious about strangers online, we decided to go to Ecuador without reaching out to anyone first. We only knew about key spots where Chinese migrants gathered. So in Quito, Ecuador, Wei Du and I moved into a guest house that was popular among Chinese migrants. When we told the guest house owner of our project, she not only welcomed us, but also shared her observations, which is an unprecedented increase in number of Chinese travelers arriving in Ecuador, but at the same time, the Ecuadorian government being unsure of what to do about it. So when we first checked in, the migrants were naturally quite suspicious of us and hesitant. So Wei Du had a really good idea. On my way up to Quito, she told me to buy snacks from Singapore, and one of which is Chinese barbecue pork called bak kwa. And when we brought out the bak kwa in the guest house, everybody's faces just lit up, like they started talking to us. So our team has affectionately coined the term bak kwa diplomacy from that. So we, of course, not just the snacks, we had to put on our best charming selves to talk to as many migrants as we could because it's a numbers game. Surprisingly, it didn't take long for us to earn the trust of 4 individuals who agreed to be featured. We realized that these Chinese migrants, who had made the biggest decisions of their lives, had been isolated on this journey, keeping everything a secret even before they left China, without anyone to confide in. So the combination of their isolation, plus finally meeting someone who's not in a position to exploit them and interested in their stories, they just opened up and their stories poured out. So with the help of these initial participants, more migrants gradually came in forward to share their experiences with us as we went on the migrant route. Our research and reporting uncovered several key insights for the documentary series. We heard directly from the migrants about their motivations for making the dangerous trip, which ranged from a lack of freedom of speech to religious persecution, but mostly economic reasons. We heard many accounts of how businesses never recovered fully from the zero COVID policy back home, and they feel like they have no choice but to go to the US for a better life. Then, of course, we witnessed their spontaneous reactions to the difficult and dangerous journey they undertook, especially the disparity between what they were expecting the journey to be like and what they actually experienced on the ground. An example was when we first started talking to some of these migrants about the Darien Gap crossing, they described it as a simple hike with a little camping on the side. And one particularly ill-informed migrant brought with her only high heels and flats, no trekking shoes. But what they realized very quickly when they arrived was that there was actual mortal danger and that a few of them almost lost their lives. On the ground footage, we traveled with the migrants, capturing this raw and unfiltered footage of their journey, and this included the constant extortion they face in Mexico from both government officials and smuggling gangs.
太恐怖了，
所以你觉得后面的人你会跟他们讲不要来了？
已经说了。
对，不管为了什么目标，你打着生命是的。
当时就想自己都放弃生命了，那时候我都想不抓了，死了算了，就想这样的。
爸爸钱不抢光了？
那个，爸爸，哎呀，人没事吧？没事啊。哎呀，吓到了是不是？妈妈吓到了。
全部抢光了。
我
们面前还瘦身了，把衣服都脱光了，全部都抢了。
什么人抢的？
起码是6批人在那里，每一个人带批人，然后你主动的把包全部翻掉，翻掉以后把衣服全部脱掉，手女的一个都不放过。
好，平安就好，平安就好。
我现在在这里动不了，撑不了，想
平安。
吃饭都没钱。
啊，没事没事。
Now, besides these harrowing stories from the migrants, we also spoke with residents in California living along the border with Mexico who were directly affected by the sudden influx of migrants. So their interviews highlighted the social and political tensions arising from the migration crisis. One of the first things we did in our reporting was to build a network of reliable sources. While we had some information from Chinese migrants, it was often incomplete or misleading. To get better details, we reached out to international organizations working along the migration route. For example, staff from Médecins Sans Frontières in Colombia helped us to confirm the routes across the Darien Gap and shared tips on navigating the tough terrain. In Panama, UNHCR staff guided us through the process of accessing migrant camps, especially during a time of big riots. The IOM UN Latin American office provided us with the latest migrant numbers and local news updates. Of course, we also worked with local fixers in the countries we visited. We needed their deep knowledge and experience to help us connect with smugglers, activists, and residents. This allowed us to capture the full picture of the migration journey for Walk the Line. Reporting for Walk the Line took us into unfamiliar and dangerous areas, including regions controlled by drug cartels and gangs. From the start, we planned strategies to keep our crews safe in these hostile environments. For example, we hired a security team that trained us in handling hostile situations prior to the trip and escorted us through Latin America. They helped us set up a daily check-in protocol where, using a combination of methods like a security app and satellite phones, the crew on the ground would constantly update our status with the company and management throughout the trip. The security measures went as far as chartering a helicopter to be on standby during the stint where we were supposed to cross the Darien Gap in case we needed a medevac. Our local fixers and security advisors gave us vital advice on avoiding dangers. There were times when the local security advisors heard chatter that we were attracting too much attention, bringing potential hostility towards us and the migrants we were following from the cartels, which we had to then tweak our production operations, such as use a smaller boom pole, move in a smaller group, and to lower the temperature of our presence. Another example in Mexico was our crew was following the smugglers' van in our own vehicle. When their van suddenly stopped by the road and they were told to get out and walk by the bushes, the crew was about to follow them, but our fixer stopped us and said, hey, no, that's too dangerous. So we had to just drive on. And true enough, those migrants, it was a trap for them and they were all robbed. So you can imagine what a nasty, messy situation it would have been if the crew had followed them. So these combined efforts really greatly reduced the risk that we faced. Keeping our sources safe and anonymous was a top priority for a show like this. We used strict masking protocols for those who didn't want their identities revealed. Some of them were worried about the safety of their families in China. Others wanted to remain anonymous in case things in the US didn't work out and they wanted to return to China. Only a few people had access to unmasked material, and we kept untreated footage separate from the company's internal system to prevent unauthorized access. We followed the highest ethical standards throughout our reporting. This meant getting informed consent from our interviewees, being clear about our intentions, and avoiding anything that can compromise our work's integrity. We made it clear to the migrants from the start that we couldn't offer any material assistance to them due to legal and ethical reasons. This included not giving them a ride in our vehicle, not lending them any money, and not exchanging any currencies with them. Having this agreement up front ensured that we didn't get into ethically or legally compromising situations with our profiles. I recall an experience with one of our main profiles, a father, you saw him in a video earlier, traveling with his wife and 14-year-old daughter. He needed to withdraw cash desperately in Colombia before they crossed the jungle because they ran out of money. So he spent half a day walking around town with his Union Pay card trying to withdraw cash, but all the ATMs in that town only accepted Visa. So in tears and desperate, he came to me and asked me to, can you just lend me some money and I'll transfer it to you on WeChat? But, I can't due to the reasons I mentioned before. So luckily, he met another migrant who had Visa cards and he got the money out that way. So there were quite a few of these tough ethical decisions that we had to make. Given the importance and timeliness of the topic, we believe Walk the Line can significantly influence the conversation around immigration and border security. We hope the thoughtful and personal approach can help inform better policy making. So as of the 1st of July, Ecuador announced it will suspend visa-free entry for Chinese citizens due to a worrying increase in irregular migration. And the following day, the US deported a group of Chinese migrants who entered the country illegally, marking the first large charter flight deportation since 2018. And earlier this month, the US and Panama signed an agreement to close the passage of illegal immigrants through the Darien Gap. So by presenting a nuanced and empathetic portrayal of Chinese migrants, we believe the documentary can encourage viewers to rethink their preconceived notions and promote a more compassionate public discussion on this issue. Thank you all for your time and attention. We appreciate your interest in Walk the Line and the important issues it addresses. Thank you very much.